That's correct, Mr. Mortimer. Here at the bank at El Paso, we have $500,000 reserve on hand. To try robbing us would be so futile that only a complete fool would attempt it. From the moment your money's on deposit here, Mr. Mortimer, you can sleep without any worry.
Growing up, I watched a lot of movies. Through them, I was able to transport myself away to another place, be it miles away or in another universe. Sometimes it was a popular place, like LA, New York, or Paris. It was always so beautiful, but it was never my home. In fact, whenever my home did come up, there seemed to be a pattern which consistently showed the Southwest in a negative light. And to me, that always included Juarez, El Paso, and Las Cruces. There was a shared negative image with these places. I couldn't say exactly how I got that impression, so I got in contact with Angie Reza Torres. Her organization runs with the philosophy of representation, which was exactly what I needed. Before the interview, I came up with a question we could discuss. How do you accurately represent to a community that isn't your own? I know that if I wanted to find accurate representation of a culture, it would be up to me to actively seek it out.
Well, that's an interesting concept because for me, representation has always sort of fallen on the responsibility of those who are trying to accurately represent who it is that they are. But on your end, it feels like the representation comes from the people who are receiving that information. It begs the question, is representation on the responsibility of those who are trying to share their truths or those who are receiving those truths?
It's hard to explain to people and then bring out the point that like, yeah, we're just normal people, because then that's not interesting to them.
Well, it doesn't fit their version of who they expect you to be.
I think it might be better. Do you mind if I show you that scene in Sicario?
Which one is?
When they go to Juarez and then they come back on the bridge.
Oh, the shootout?
Yeah.
I actually used it to teach a class. And I spoke about stereotypes about the border in film. And that scene specifically, we discussed just certain ways that people are filmed to make them feel like the other, like criminal.
That one dude with all the face tattoos and everything.
Yeah, not just in costume and makeup and everything, but you have wider shots of them. There's no intimacy because God forbid that you relate or that they have complexity or that they're human. You show the good guys as heroic by going into their psyche, into their fear, into their courage, into their bravery. And all of a sudden, your mind demonizes one side, and people who are not American or people of color or women constantly pushed into roles that make us weaker or not the heroes. In the US, we don't have enough Latinx movies to justify constantly making the Mexicans the bad guys, Why are they trying to smuggle drugs? What is it that they're trying to get away from? Those are questions that no one's asking or presenting in these films.
After having our conversation, I realized this was a bigger topic than initially thought. In order to get a fuller picture, I reached out to people from out of town and asked about their experiences in El Paso.
My name is David Modigliani. I'm a documentary filmmaker.
I'm Clayton Maxwell. I'm a freelance travel and culture writer.
I'm Sharon Arteaga, and I'm an independent filmmaker.
But I really didn't know what to expect, and I hadn't really encountered or seen it in any media.
The people I knew in El Paso would always come over to Corpus and stay with us, and they were musicians. I feel like from a young age, El Pasoans were always either musicians or artists.
I was trying to find Pancho Villa's Trigger Finger, and I remember talking to a lady. I stopped her. I said, "Do you really think that's Pancho Villa's Trigger Finger?" And she said, "I don't know, but I do know that my great-grandfather fought for Pancho Villa, and a lot of people think he's a really bad guy, but not all of us feel that way." So I got a little hint of all the history and culture that one can experience there.
In 2017, I was thinking about making a film called Running with Beto that was a behind-the-scenes film following Beto and his family in their run for the U.S. Senate seat in Texas. So his friend Steve Ortega invited me to meet him at 6 a.m. up on Rim Road. And Steve was showing me, like, you know, there's Ciudad Juarez, there's El Paso, and like there's the border, and maybe you can spot it down there. But it really gave me this feeling of how the people living in this valley were one community, and you could see that from the Franklin Mountains.
I came to El Paso for the El Paso Film Festival, and the thing that struck me most was when I got into my room and I saw this just beautiful view of downtown El Paso. There's just this, I mean, I'm making a generalization here based on the El Pasoans that I've met, but there's this like very soft grace, very quiet grace about El Pasoans that I've met.
And all of that blended with the culture that's definitely not Mexico, but is definitely not like the rest of Texas.
I would tell anyone that would listen that I had fallen in love with El Paso, that was part of the privilege of this project. And I think some people thought I was kidding, but I think a lot of people just don't know much about El Paso at all. So I found myself being able to evangelize on its behalf.
And I might be romanticizing it, but I really feel like it's the most successful example of cultures getting along, and it's not a big deal.
El Paso. I spent a month there one night.
Everything that David, Clayton, and Sharon had to say surprised me. But what surprised me the most was how genuine of an experience they all had. I loved what they had to say, but even after talking with Angie, I still don't feel like I have a clear answer as to why the Southwest is portrayed the way it is. And at this point, I'd rather ask the question, how do we go about changing that perception? I wanted to tackle the subject of the Southwest's misrepresentation because I'm really trying to reach out to my younger self. The younger self that was angry at the Southwest for not being in the movies I watched. Angry at those feelings of loneliness and being insignificant. The same feelings I have when I try to fight the giant that is mainstream film alone. But I know I'm not alone. I have the Southwest and its people to help me. I wanted to make this documentary to start a dialogue that would include people like my younger self, to help them connect with their communities and create stories together. I think Angie summarizes it best.
We need to share a diversity of several different kinds of perspectives in order for people to start seeing us for the whole beings that we are.